I was sitting here and I was like, oh my God, wait, what are we even doing?
Yeah, it's
So that probably says a lot about the movie.
yeah.
Right.
So
Hello, and welcome to Spooky Sips, where we put our love of horror movies into a podcast and sip some spirits along the way. Whoa, wait, slip. I forgot the intro as I was saying it. It usually just comes to me. Hello, and welcome to Spooky Sips, where we put our love of horror movies into a podcast and sip some spirits along the way. I'm one of your hosts, Yvette, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Lara and Brianna.
Hello.
hey. Okay, so we went to the theaters this week and we saw Longlegs. It's a 2024 movie. Nicolas Cage. I mean, he was in it, but I think he also produced or
Yeah, I think
something.
he's a producer.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But it's essentially about a young FBI detective that is put on this case about a serial killer in the area that's been killing for 30 years. And that's essentially what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we try not to say our feelings early on, but I'm going to tell you where my thoughts are at, because as I was looking up a synopsis, it has the in a nutshell section where it says what the movie is in a nutshell, and it described it as thrilling, dark, and terrifying. I am here to tell you it was none of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe dark.
Yeah, I was going to say dark.
Maybe. It was overcast. It wasn't dark. It was not thrilling.
It was
And
not
it was
thrilling.
not terrifying.
Yeah.
At all.
I mean, I feel like I was really pushing for us to watch this movie because I was really excited about it. And, this is why you should never watch trailers and avoid all marketing for movies at all cost, because they did too good of a job. And I was really excited about it. And I wanted to this movie so badly. And I actually think it started really strong.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was sitting in my chair when the movie ended, and I was like, oh, I didn't like that. I had to take a minute to be I wanted to like it so badly. At the end, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how to feel.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think both Lara and I had moments where we were nodding off.
No.
Yeah.
No,
and we went midday.
No, at some points, I don't know if you guys ever did this in school or whatever when you're in a lecture and you you literally pinch your own skin just to make it painful so you stay awake.
Yes.
Because you're nodding off. I was doing that in the movie.
Yeah. I definitely don't I dozed off where I was like, oh, wait, what did they say? It took me a second to be oh, I just was not paying attention to what they were saying for a section there.
And I mean, we on Spooky Sips really try to have a wide breadth of types of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've done a few slow burns, and I'm all for a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
This was more of a slow fizzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just, I think it started pretty strong, and then it kind of seemed to unravel.
Yeah.
The more you got, I feel like they tried to do so much,
too much.
Yes.
They had a lot of cool ideas, but the execution and they didn't tie it together.
Yeah, the ideas didn't mesh together, so they should have just stuck with one or two and done them well rather than tried to do 10 poorly.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And I mean, so okay, the movie opens up and we're immediately introduced to our girl, Lee Harker. She's the FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's her and her partner are in a car together. And so that's immediately right.
Oh, wait, the opening scene? No, the opening scene, I loved the opening scene.
Maybe I just forgot this entire movie.
Oh, okay. I actually really loved the opening scene. Okay. The opening scene is they go and they're at the farmhouse where Lee grew up. And it starts by you see this car pull up to the driveway, and it almost feels like someone has a camcorder as they're pulling in and zooming in on the house. And we see Lee see the car and go outside to check it out. And it felt ominous. It felt dark. It was that feeling of someone pulling up to your driveway that you don't know, trying to figure out what's happening. And someone is somewhere. So we see part of Longlegs, Nick Cage, but they don't show his full face. They do that like show kind of like his mouth and maybe his nose. And he's talking to the almost birthday girl, but they distort his voice.
Yes.
So it has like a darker echo.
Well,
almost.
and it's very kind of like also androgynous. Like I couldn't
Yes.
tell if this was a man or a woman speaking.
Yeah, and almost kind of clownish. Like there was a very like theatrical.
Yeah, like
tone to
very white makeup that, you know, did not match his skin tone. And like, yeah, I think he has like long hair. So yeah, very androgynous, especially when we can only see half his face. I actually really liked the opening. When they opened like this and then Longlegs started talking for like this opening scene, I was like, oh, okay. I'm locked in. I'm into this.
No, I liked that scene too. And the movie had certain parts to it. I did happen to write down what the parts were.
Oh, good.
So it started out, part 1 was called His Letters. And then we see that scene. But yeah, I liked that opening scene. And I also had not, I didn't watch any previews, so I didn't know much about it, but I did just hear so many people talk about this as such a super scary movie. So I also had my hopes up. And then that opening scene happened and I was like, ooh, yes, this is going to be so good.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
So that's when we then cut to older Lee.
Yes.
And her partner.
We didn't necessarily know it was Lee as a child, right? Like it was just a little girl. But yeah, then we're in the car. And here was my issue with this character is that you could tell what they were trying to do. Like it was almost, it like really reminded me of like Clarice Starling from the Hannibal, you know, like it kind of that. She's a little bit different. There's something a little off about her. Like that whole kind of, she's not like other agents.
Because they make it very clear, like she has, you know, ESP, extrasensory perception, or is that what it?
Yeah, and like
psychic, or she has,
and she also seems a little like neurodivergent. Like she's sensitive to people, you know, talking to her, and she's just her habits are very finite.
Her timing is off, like as she speaks too. She kind of speaks a little and responds. Just her response time is a little slow.
Yeah,
but here's my issue: they took it and they went too far and they kept it that way. Like it got to a point where I was like, I could not care less what this character is saying. Like it just made me very unengaged because I was like, it's just too much trying so hard that it turned me off.
I feel like I actually think the acting, like the actors were good.
Yes.
But the character development was kind of lacking, which is disappointing because there are such few characters.
Exactly.
Like, and I feel like that's another thing, you know, it's like, I feel like the movie started to become kind of predictable just because it's like, look, there's only like 5 people you've introduced me to.
Like, where are we going to go with this?
Yeah. Like at some point, I know you're going to be bringing me back to this person.
I thought it was predictable, except for then when they threw those weird curveballs in, like that had with the metal balls in the doll's head. We'll get to this, but I was like, where the heck did that come from? And that makes no sense.
They got a little weird.
No, yeah, this goes to the like unraveling that I felt kind of came, and because Matt and I watched it together, and again, I'm a big fan of Stephen King, but it kind of had that Stephen King energy of like a really good story and then ending it with some weird Wi-Fi supernatural thing that actually explains it all, where it's like, oh, okay, that's not how I was hoping this would end.
Right.
So it's Lee and her partner, who's another young agent, and they're in front of this house.
Yeah, because they're gonna go try to find the serial killer.
Yeah, because he, like, I think, didn't they say it was like 30 years it spanned back? Like, this killer has been doing this for a long time, and it took a while for them to notice the pattern. But they have now, and here's another, you know, killing. And so when they get there, their job is to like door knock for information because they're rookie agents, so they're not given a high level task,
right?
But because of Lee's ESPN, she is able to tell the house that it is. And she's like, it's that one. You know, which is fine.
Yeah.
So they get to the house, and I noticed that they were driving Oregon. Their car had Oregon plates.
Yeah. So, of course, it's in the Pacific Northwest. Of course.
I just noticed that.
Make me scared.
Yep. But yeah, so they get the guy, you know, like he takes charge. And so he's like, I'll be the one to knock. You stay back. So he goes and he knocks and just is instantly shot. So we get our first death right away.
And we don't see who did it. We just see him being shot.
Yeah.
I do like that then Lee goes into the house, which I feel like she should have called for backup.
100%. That made me so, I was like, this wouldn't, she probably would have been kicked off.
Right.
This case.
For not, or even just the whole FBI for doing this.
Clarice Starling would have known better.
She would have known.
I feel like there's so many things later where it's like, there's no way this would fly.
Right. Yeah. But I did like the house that then she goes into. So she goes to like search for the guy that just shot her partner square in the forehead. And it was very Dexter vibes.
Yeah.
Like there's just this plastic.
Yeah. Just like a sheet.
Like construction.
Floors, walls, ceilings, like everywhere.
Plastic.
Do you guys remember when, my basement kind of flooded and then they had to come and like redo the basement. And when they did that, we have asbestos because the house is so old. We have asbestos all over like the glue on the wood paneling on the walls and stuff. So they had to like do that. What's the term for asbestos
abatement?
What's that?
Abatement.
Yeah, the abatement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had to do that. And so it was just floor, walls, ceilings, just covered in plastic wrap. And it was like, I just felt like I was like in an episode of Dexter. It was very cool.
We digress. We're so bored of this movie. We'll find anything else to talk about.
Okay. So she doesn't find anyone in the house. Then it cuts to, we see her getting like the FBI is giving her like all of these psychic tests.
Wait, no, she does find the guy.
Oh, she does find the guy?
Yeah.
Wait, did she?
Which again was confusing because at the beginning they were like, oh, and like he will not go quietly, the suspect that we're going after. And so she's in the house, she walks upstairs and the guy's just sitting in the bed with his like hands up.
Oh my God, you're right.
Like he's just fully like surrendering.
Right. I think I'm going to stop describing this movie because I have no memory.
Yeah, so she just gets this first, she catches this first killer immediately.
She sure does.
That is so funny that I completely forgot that. Huh, okay.
And then we get like, oh, you must be really good at this. Let's give you this psychic test.
I mean, in full disclosure, we did share a bottle of champagne before we went. So
we did
half a bottle of champagne. Okay?
Well, so we went.
That's nothing. That's just breakfast.
We went out to lunch beforehand, and so we each ordered a glass of prosecco. And then the guy's like, "Well, do you just want a whole bottle?" And if someone asks you that, you say yes.
It literally takes no immediate yes.
Twist our rubber arms.
It's economical.
It just makes sense.
It's the right thing to do. So
yeah, no waste.
Okay, so now she's getting all of her testing done.
Yeah.
And then like she goes back with her new boss. Maybe
but we have to talk about the test. Because it's like they're just flashing images. Like she's just in a room. They're giving her like minimal instruction.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, tell us the first thing that comes to mind. And then she has to guess a number.
Numbers.
And it's like, it's very weird. And then, her associations are weird. Like she does relate, like triangle is like father. And I think circle or something was mother. And like, it was just like, her things it was like, okay, you have some things to work through.
Right.
Yeah. It was kind of like a modern version of the Rorschach, which I don't remember if we've talked about this.
I think we have
on the podcast before. I think we probably have.
Almost certain that we have.
But it's like this really old school way of like you see ink blots in a certain pattern, and then psychologists back in the day would say, okay, well, depending on what your answers are, you either have a healthy, way of looking at things or you're screwed.
Yeah.
Kind of. So
Yeah, it felt like that.
When she's out with her boss, he talks about how like she got a lot right, but she's like, well, yeah, but I also got some wrong.
She
like
was
it
half,
wasn't, it was not complete, but you can tell that like her boss is like, yeah, that's more than
he's like
people.
He's like, well, half psychic is better than not psychic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I loved that. Like, right.
So he's using some statistics to see that she has this precognition ability, whereas she's kind of saying, no, not so much. Like, I still got a lot wrong, which we will talk about when we get to the psych section.
Ooh, I'm excited for the psych section of this.
I will say, because like, obviously Nicolas Cage is in this, and I think that was a lot of like the advertising for it because people love Nicolas Cage, but I love the actor that plays her boss, Blair Underwood. He's like one of my top favorite actors. Incredible. He's so good. And he was amazing in this.
Okay. So at this point,
we start to learn about Longlegs. So we learn about the fact that, there's been 10 families that essentially have been serial killer murdered by Longlegs. And each time the families, time there's been some, dead families, there's also 10 letters that are signed by Longlegs. However, at the scenes of the crime, it doesn't appear like there's been anyone else at the scenes. So it seems like it's just, the dad of the family kills the kids, kills the mom, kills himself.
Right. So there's actually no present killer.
No like DNA or anything except the letter. That's the only reason they know someone was involved. Which, cool setup. I was so into the beginning of this movie.
Me too.
Like,
I was too.
We learn about the case and it's like, wow, like that is such an awful thing that, does happen in real life, right?
And you're like, how?
Killing. And then, it's like, oh, it's such a mystery. Like, how this happens. What's causing him to do it?
Well, and we also learn that all the daughters have birthdays on the 14th for whatever month that they're, born in. So again, it's like, what?
Yeah, like what does that have to do with anything? Like,
right.
So she goes home and she tries to decode. That's one of the first things she does is like try to decode the letters.
Oh, because she gets a letter.
Right.
Well, so because she gets assigned the case and then they not lock her in a room. She goes in a room and like gets all the evidence and she's like, I don't know, assigning things to numbers and stuff and
making patterns.
And she's trying to figure out the code because the letters are all coded. They're not. It's not English. And she does. She cracks the code. And is able to kind of decipher the letters.
Just like really easily too. Again, I was so mad about that. Like I was so dissatisfied by the deciphering part of this movie. Like, because it's like she just figures it out. And
like, why even do it then?
And like, they don't even really show us like how she did it.
Isn't it that she figured it out with the letter that got sent to her, not the ones that had been left at the scene? So I was thinking maybe. So Longlegs sends her personally a letter. And I was thinking maybe that he put something extra in her letter so that she could figure it out. Whereas before, the letters left at the scene were too cryptic. No one was ever going to be able to crack it. But he somehow kind of sent her the code.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but again, we're not shown that. That's just...
Right.
And I know, like, why even do it then?
We also have to
have them be letters.
The scene right before she goes home, I think it's right before, either right before or right after, is when her boss is like, that makes her drive him home and meet his family.
Yeah.
Which I feel like this scene felt so weird.
Because they went out for a drink, but only he drank. So she drove him home.
And he was like, come meet my wife and child. And it's like, okay.
And it is a very weird vibe.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the only point of that was so that eventually later on in the movie, there's a scene that happens where, Ruby is the daughter of her boss. It's just so that there could be a connection, I think, between Lee.
Well, yeah, because it was like, oh, hey, can she come to my birthday? And it's like, oh, you mean like how 5 seconds ago you told me that all of the victims have the same birthday? Let's take a wild guess on when the daughter's birthday is.
Right.
And that won't raise any eyebrows.
Right.
Like, but
guess
yeah,
what,
so
Spooky Sippers? It's on the 14th.
so the kid invites her, and
They could
Leah's
have made
like,
it a little bit more so.
because I think they do have a connection. Like, Lee does engage with the child, and you can tell that like she's uncomfortable, but she does kind of let her in. So there's like a little connection between her and Ruby.
I will say, like, the scene where Lee meets Ruby for the first time, you know, and it's like she's like sitting on her bed and they're talking. That's pretty much live footage of whenever I interact with a child.
Yeah.
Which a little awkward.
Which is just sitting there saying nothing.
Yeah.
Like, cool backpack or something.
Yeah, cool backpack, man.
Yeah.
I was like, I see nothing wrong actually with this scene.
Right. It's glaringly awkward and uncomfortable, but Yvette's right at home. So
yeah. Actually, no, I was feeling like it reminded me of something. That must be it.
that was it. It was you.
Reminds me of when you interact with a kid. Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool backpack.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know, things happen.
Well,
When do we
okay, so
meet her
I
mom?
wanted to talk about the scene where she's like decoding the letter that gets mailed to her.
Oh, yeah.
In that, she has a conversation with her mom. So she calls her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation with the mom, they both just spoke so monotone and quiet and slowly. That's what started to put me to sleep. I was like, I get it for a little bit of like a vibe that you're going for, but
no, like I said, they took it too far.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was so boring.
So yeah, we kind of see like that her mom there's something going on. Her mom is
something's
not
weird with the
well.
mom.
Right.
Yeah. No, and their relationship is clearly off.
Yes.
Like that conversation is not normal.
Yeah, and like her mom asks if she said her prayers.
Yeah.
Yeah, one
Mhm.
point,
You know, and she's like, yeah, sure. Like,
right. But then you see someone outside of her
Yes.
outside of her house. See, I can't talk either. I was like, house, home. I don't know that word.
We're struggling today.
it's fine. We're tired, okay?
Also, like, are either of you drinking? I like literally had a tea right before.
I literally poured myself this glass of wine and I've had 2 sips in the last half an hour.
I have all these presentations to give at work this week. And I have to do it again tomorrow. So I'm not drinking tonight. I am drinking tea.
Yeah, like it's
call.
not
no excuse.
Maybe
it's
that's
not
why
even
we're
alcohol.
not on our game, though. Like,
yeah, like we need the alcohol to be normal.
Right.
So I actually think that's what the problem is.
Don't read into that too much.
Yeah. Fine. Oh Lord.
Okay, yeah, that is one thing they do really well in this movie is just setting up like a spooky, dark atmosphere. Like the scene where the guy's outside the house. I feel like it was like, like you're scared. It's like, and I feel like they do those like wider shots, you know, where you see what you're supposed to be focusing on, like the person, and then they show you like just barely too much of the background, and it's always just dark enough that you can't tell if you're seeing something.
Yes.
So there were multiple scenes where I was like scanning the background to be like, wait, is there someone? Is someone about to like pop up? And they did a couple times, but I think it worked every time. I think they actually did that really well.
No, I agree. I liked that part. I liked this scene too, because like she then goes out to get the guy, but then when she looks back, he's been inside the house.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's when he leaves the note. So that happens before she does the decoding.
It's fine. We're not going to be incredibly chronological.
Right. But that's how she gets the note is that he leaves
Yeah.
That's right.
And then we get to part 2.
Yeah.
Which is called All of Your Things.
Interesting. I
don't know if that's what I wrote down.
All right. I believe you.
So what of importance happens next?
So then this is when I wrote down that he had left her this coded birthday card. And that had the key. That's what I wrote down, that had the key to the rest of the letters, and it was signed Longlegs.
And that was the first time as the audience we were like, oh shit, is she one of the girls?
Right.
At least I thought that. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that we're like, oh wait, there might be something there.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I have is that then there was a family discovered.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's like right after she cracks the code or whatever, right? They give her a call and it was like, oh, like, we need you to come to the crime scene. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so this family that has died, they've clearly been dead for some time, but they had been going on
a month.
Yeah. So they had been going on vacation. So no one reported it because they knew they were going to be going on vacation. But my question is, they find this kind of gruesome scene and then they show in the bedroom where the family, they all were dead together on the bed. There was a cat in a cat carrier.
Yeah.
But they mentioned the family had been dead for 1 month.
Okay, so my take on that was that it was their cat carrier. That they went in and put the cat in the carrier.
The cops did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was how
otherwise I was like, there's no way that cat would survive.
Yeah, that was how I interpreted it.
Okay.
Yeah. Where it's like they put it. Yeah.
So this is when I then wrote down that there was a conversation where the mom had told Lee to say her prayers. And then we see all of these news headlines about satanic cults.
Yeah.
And then Lee starts to do some research into the 9 circles of hell. And it's all about satanic stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the many themes that this movie tried to just shove into the same movie.
Agreed.
Again, they didn't do anything with they so heavily referenced like the satanic panic. Like even one of the very early scenes where we first meet Lee's boss, whose like name I'm forgetting, and in his office, it's like the biggest picture of Bill Clinton you've ever seen in your life. And it's like, okay, I get it. We're in the 90s.
Right.
Like
right. Message received.
You could have been a little more subtle with it. Like it was so clearly like late 90s.
No, I know.
Like satanic panic. And then they just didn't do anything with it.
I know.
I mean, literally, Satan did do it. So it's like, what?
I know.
Right.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because I think the timing was a frustrating aspect of this. I will say, like, that one scene of the dead family, like the gore was good.
Yeah.
Like it was disgusting. So there really was not much gore at all. But the little they did was well done.
Yeah.
But I feel like they just got lost in all the things they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think in this next section, we get introduced to another spooky part. I think she keeps cracking codes or something and eventually leads to like, oh, X marks the spot. Or like, I keep seeing X marks the spot. And they realize that there is a survivor. And so they find where her family lived, which is where X marks the spot. They find the house and it has a bunch of X's clearly on it.
And it's Carrie Ann Camera.
Yes.
Like it's the Camera family farm and the person that survives is Carrie Ann.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I also love that actress.
Oh, she crushed that scene. So I think before we meet her, they go to their home or the barn.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And this is where they go into the attic and there's, what was it? Was it a cross? I think it was a cross.
It was an upside down crucifix.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was like nailed or glued or
to
like,
the board.
Onto the floor. And so they're trying to like lift it and they couldn't. So they just like break the floorboards. And that's when we see something. And like, it is such a realistic looking doll. Like immediately was like, that's a human body.
Yes.
Right.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. No. And it's like, because I think we see quickly, right, that it's a doll. But I swear there's like that half second of like, oh my God, that's a child.
Yeah. At first I thought it was just a living child. Like, but yes.
The dolls were creepy.
The dolls were creepy. And there was a note under the doll. And the reason I bring this up is because in my notes, I did draw a image of what the note had on it.
Oh my God. I was hoping you would say the doll.
It was an upside down triangle with a smiley face on it.
Oh my God.
I think it's identical to what we saw in the movie.
I'm going to need you to take a photo of that and send it to me. So
that is exactly right.
But then, as they're moving the mannequin, her eyes open.
Yeah.
And it's just so hyper realistic.
It really is. And so then we go to like the coroner or something. So
Yeah.
Yes.
it was like checking on the doll.
Right. Which, okay.
Which is okay. I
That's
guess
not
you
who
have to
you would have
collect
gone to.
evidence, but it
The
looked
FBI
like a
doesn't
medical.
have, the FBI does not have a lab, so.
Yeah, it looked like
Local,
a medical place.
Emmy,
I don't
it
know.
is.
And that's when we see that or learn that there was this orb inside her head.
Yeah.
And they do like an MRI or something to realize that there's nothing in the orb, but it has these like whispers or something that are like coming out of it.
What are they talking about?
Right.
Like the way that they were explaining it, I was like, what they're saying doesn't make any human sense. Like, what are they saying?
No. And
well,
it,
again,
like,
so yeah, like at first it was like detectives and serial killers, and then it was like satanic cults, and now it's creepy dolls, and I just it's too it's
and there was no thread.
Not only is it creepy dolls, but it's like magic orbs that are like having creepy whispers.
That it's like talking, and there was no thread through any of this.
No,
so many good ideas here.
Too many.
Just way too many, but they needed to flush it out just a little bit more. So then that's when we meet the survivor, the only survivor of Longlegs.
This is one of the saving graces of this film was I really liked this scene. Well, like, and this scene to me was like, okay.
I think before we see her though, we do see that it's Nick Cage that makes the dolls.
Right.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
So right before we get to this great scene, like we do see that it's Nick Cage that is making the doll.
And because he's got this little room. Yeah, and he's got a little workshop set up.
And I will say, one thing I really liked about this movie is Nick Cage is creepy AF in this movie.
Yeah.
Like his makeup, his just acting.
His voice.
Very creepy.
No, I think they needed significantly more Nick Cage. I think they should have leaned into it.
I agree.
Like he was like he was honestly really good in it. He was perfectly weird. He was everything you expect out of Nick Cage. But he's not really in this movie very much.
Not much.
I honestly, I'm curious if anyone has like the total screen time that he had in this movie, because it has to be less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah, agreed.
But so we see the scene of him just being like so creepy, and we see that he's like in his car driving either away or to somewhere, and he's just screaming, and his scream is so intense.
Yeah.
It's so good. I only bring that up because there's a reason why like the survivor has been, kind of comatose for like however many years. And all of a sudden she's lucid and talking. And the log at the home where she's at says that it's our FBI agent Lee that went to see her. But really we all know that it was actually Longlegs.
Right.
That went to see her.
Yeah. So she meets Carrie Ann Camera, played by Kiernan Shipka, who is so good. So good. She just crushes her delivery of this very short monologue and her only scene in this movie. She is so briefly in this movie.
Yeah, but she did so good in it.
Long impact.
So good. So she just goes off about how she is like will obey anything that I don't know if she calls him Longlegs.
I don't think she does.
I don't think she does.
Yeah, but she talks about how she will like obey Longlegs, and she says like, "Oh, if he asked me to jump out a window, like I would do it."
Yeah,
and,
whatever he says, I will do.
Yeah, like she just looks unwell when she's doing all of this,
and just the way she talks. Like she has an accent, but she said like I wrote a couple of things that she would say. Like she just says these bizarre phrases. Like one is happy as peaches. And then she would talk about she would add some extra S's onto things. Like she said something about your eyes is.
Yeah. Oh,
and then the one my favorite quote that she said, I think she called Lee a dirtsy flirtsy old angel bitch.
I'm so happy you wrote these down.
I was like, yes, dirty, flirty old angel bitch. That's my new nickname. I love it.
No, it's so good. But then in this, she also says she recognizes Lee.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like she's like, you've been to my house, or
Yeah.
maybe
Like I know you.
I
Like,
know you. So yeah, you get again more of the they're connected somehow.
mhm.
Okay, I will say one thing though was like, okay, like girl, like Lee, she just told you she was going to jump out a window.
Literally.
Maybe let's report that,
Right.
like to anyone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
And I mean, a patient that's been comatose for years and years and years is finally lucid. You would think she would have a little more observation ordered to her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I feel like we can just jump to what happens to her character because it
Right.
doesn't really matter
No.
chronologically, but she literally jumps out
Yep.
the window or off the top of the building or something.
Right. Yeah, it's something like that.
And again, as soon as I was like, yeah, of course. She literally said that's
she
what she
told
was
us.
going to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it from her telling Lee the story that we kind of learn about one of I think maybe it's her family where there's a shroud, we see this flash of a shrouded person, and then like the dad, we see like again another image flash of a dad had like killed the cow, chopped its head off.
Oh yeah,
And
because
then-
she's describing her parents.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we see the dad had killed the cow, and then we see that a priest had come to try to talk to the family. The dad kills the priest. That scene was pretty good. Like the way he
Yes.
went after the priest and then went after the mom.
Mhm.
That was pretty.
It was kind of that very like slow then rapid
Yes.
Mhm.
cinematography, and
Yeah.
that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she referred to something about the man down the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's important.
Which I think Longlegs says at the beginning
Yes.
as well when he's talking to the little girl. It's like, oh, I'm with the man downstairs or friends
Right.
of the man downstairs or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So we've heard that a couple times now too.
And somewhere around this scene, we see Lee go visit her mom. Right? Like, wasn't that before this, or like she goes just to her mom's house to like check on
Yeah.
her? And like, you know, we can kind of see that the mom is a hoarder, that like she has a lot of stuff. The house is not well
Yeah.
maintained. She asks her mom if she's eaten. And there's like Price is Right blaring in the background.
Mhm.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And yeah, she tries to get her mom to eat, and her mom is just kind of like almost a little dissociated.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's a good way to
there.
describe it. Mhm.
So because we had had the phone call, but we actually see their interaction now. We kind of get an idea of who her mom is.
And I think it's when Lee is there that she gets like some other visions too, like visions of snakes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
We get the vision of snakes a couple times.
Yes.
I don't really
get it. It's like the red
And
snakes.
I don't think that actually ever went anywhere, but
I mean, I think it was just being like, oh, hey, this is the devil.
Oh,
devil.
Warning, devil,
hey,
warning.
devil.
Hey man, Google devil stuff real quick and tell us what you find. We'll throw it in there.
Gotta throw it. Oh yeah, no snakes.
Red
Love
snakes,
it.
okay. Okay, so yeah, now the movie's kind of like, you know, getting there, because it's a slow movie, a long movie.
Yeah, so like
So she's at the house, and I think something makes her look through a chest of her stuff.
Yeah, she like went up to her room and she took it back to her house.
Yeah,
with her.
Yeah. So we like transit. Like I think she opens it in her mom's house, but then we like transition to her being her house.
Yep.
And then she just finds a picture of Longlegs,
right?
Which is great. She solved it. She
Like,
found
hey,
him.
Problem solved.
Yep. Because in that opening scene, the little girl had a Polaroid.
Oh, that's right.
And so she took a picture of Longlegs, and she's been sitting in her house. And so she's like, hey, FBI, here he is. Let's go get him.
Yeah.
And then
she has a flashback to that opening scene, and we realize it's her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're like, oh, okay, she's that little girl.
Even though, like, obviously, who else would it be?
Well, right.
But
and then, all of a sudden, he's arrested because it's really easy.
We just
apparently,
got him
with just a photo to find him.
They bring him in. His real name is like Cobble or something.
Yeah, I think that's
his name. Yeah,
I think it's Cobble.
And then he's saying some cryptic stuff. Like I just wrote down the words crimson or clover. I don't know why I wrote that down, but I think he said something about that.
You know, my question is this: At this point, does her boss know she's one of the people, the little
No.
girls? Okay. Because, like, you know, she just goes in there with him by herself.
I don't
And
think
I'm
the
like,
boss knows that she has a connection to him.
okay, I was like, that wouldn't have happened. They would not have just had a rookie agent go in there and casually talk to one of the most prevalent serial killers of the last 3 decades. Like, that would not have been
Well, okay,
how that fucking happened. Like,
I'm pretty sure. Okay, wait, I'm trying to remember. Is it after then he talks to her that
Mhm.
we get the recording of him sitting in the interrogation room just singing her happy birthday?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's
when
kind of
is
like
that?
I forget if it's
intermeshed.
because then they're like showing it to her,
Right.
to
Yeah.
Lee, to be like, oh yeah, here he is talking about you and
Right.
singing happy birthday for 20 minutes.
So then
And they're
she
all like-
goes in there.
Yeah.
And then
so
she
it's
goes
like,
in. Oh, yeah, you're right. So he did know. Oh,
clearly,
that's weird.
why would you even
Right.
let her
I don't know.
take her off the case
Mm-hmm.
like yesterday?
So yeah, then they go in there and she tries to talk to him, but really, yeah, like Crimson
Yeah.
and Clover comes up.
Because
He'll
she feels like,
Satan.
well, she feels like, or she knows that someone's helping him. So she's trying to figure out who's helping him.
And they, you know, the other agents know that too, right? Because
Right.
they're like, he is not working alone. That's what we need. Like, I don't care that we have him. We need who he's working with.
Right.
That's the.
Which I feel like even that wasn't that obvious to me. I feel like they
Right.
were just like, oh, there's no way he's working alone. It's like, how do
Right.
you, what?
How do you
How
know
do you
that?
know that?
Well,
Right.
I think they were saying it because in all of these families too, there's no forced entry. There's no signs of struggle or anything. So what I think their thought is, there is, you know, possibly a woman, possibly someone younger, someone who doesn't look creepy as shit like Longlegs, who people
Yeah.
trust to say, okay, you can come into the house.
Because I think they even say like it could be a priest at one point.
Yeah.
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 But again, it's like, okay, well, you don't know anything about there's no DNA evidence that anyone is in the house. Why would you
Right.
assume it's 2 people?
Or just any evidence, like
Yeah.
at all.
Right.
Anyway.
So yeah,
I
they go in
digress.
there. He rambles. They're not getting anywhere. And then he just
Yeah.
like, I don't even know what he says before, but he just like bashes his face
Yeah.
on the metal table
That part was
Right.
brutal.
over and over. And like all of a sudden his like nose is just gone.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's just this like, and he just keeps doing it
Yeah, just
I
over and over.
until he essentially like bashes his brain in.
Yep.
And then like the blood is just getting everywhere in the room.
Yeah. So it's all over her.
All over
and-
her. Yep.
Which again,
Yeah.
it's like I feel like maybe people should have stepped in like the first bash.
Like
but
Right.
nobody
what
was
do I know?
right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, but then also during that, he like tells Lee to go ask her mom
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, he does.
about something.
Right.
I don't remember. But you know,
Yeah.
he's like, go talk to your mom. Which is like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mom's
Maybe she
involved.
said. Maybe I think he says, "Talk to your mom about Mr. Downstairs" or something.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we get to part 3, which is
Okay.
part 3 is birthday girls.
So they realize that Lee has to go talk to her mom because Longlegs told her to. And they were like, what do you need? 1 agent to come with you? That seems reasonable. They were even like, I don't know, you could drive yourself. But
Yeah.
luckily an agent stepped in and was like, no, you shouldn't have to drive after you saw a man bash his head in. We are going to go make you talk
This
to
is
your
like
mom, though.
the worst representation of what the FBI actually is.
Yeah.
Because like I remember when the Silence of the Lambs came out, the FBI was like, yeah, they actually they got it. And they worked with the FBI to like correctly, but
Okay,
like
yeah,
they
I
were
was
like,
trying to
yeah,
remember.
they did a good job. I can only imagine what they would say about this film. Like
Something tells me the FBI was not involved.
not
in
even like a poorly
the making.
resourced police department would do this bad. Like
Right. Right.
So yeah, they were like, Lee plus 1 person. Lee gets out of the car and tells the other agent to just like wait in the car and she'll go talk to her mom.
Mhm.
But while Lee's in the house, we see her mom outside with a gun. And then I think we hear this shot while
Mhm.
she's in the house. And
Yep.
she just killed the agent shot her in the car.
And there's two shots. There's the one that we hear, and then she like walks to the other side of the car, and you can already see some blood in the car, but then she shoots again, and it's just like the whole front windshield is just full of blood.
Yeah.
And the mom is kind of in this nun outfit, like she's got her little, nun hat on.
The
habit, right?
The habit, yes.
Yeah. So that's weird because we're like, why is she wearing that? Like, we don't know her as a nun, so it's weird. Like,
yeah. And then we see her mom again with the gun getting ready to shoot something. And that something is a doll dressed like Lee.
Dun, dun, dun.
So then she shoots the doll.
Yeah.
And then we see she shoots the doll in the head.
Yeah.
Which I guess breaks the sphere.
Right.
And then Lee passes out.
Well, we see this little black cloud come out of her
released
head.
from the metal sphere.
And then her head too, right? I think
Lee's
Lee's head.
Like,
oh,
the black cloud comes out of Lee's head, who has not been shot, but is obviously now we've got voodoo dolls added to
Now I can't remember, was this before or after she went downstairs?
So she wakes up downstairs.
Because we should say the first time that Lee went to her mom's house, she like heard something behind this door and tried to open it and it was locked and she couldn't get in.
Yep.
So yeah, you're right. She wakes up in the room that we know is Longlegs'
workshop.
And then we get this once upon a time, there was this doll maker story.
Which it's like, so she just knows this?
Right.
Well, because I think what happened is Longlegs came to kill Lee. Somehow was able to intervene and stop him. And then I think basically she and Longlegs had a little chat and he told her, hey, here's what's up. Here's what I do. And she was like, basically like, okay, don't kill my daughter and I'll help you kill other people from now on to save Lee.
Yeah.
I think that's how she knows the history of it because she becomes pals with Longlegs, basically.
Right. Yeah, and we see clips of her going with a big box that we know the doll is in to other people's houses. Yeah. And so then we're back in the basement with Lee and there's stairs. So she walks up the stairs and she's in her mom's house. So she realizes like, oh shit, this was Longlegs.
He is the man downstairs.
Yeah, he is the
literally.
man downstairs.
And the phone is ringing.
Yeah.
That's why she goes upstairs. And she answers and there's like a muffled kind of voice saying like, oh, you're late to the party.
She's late to Judy's birthday party.
Judy's birthday party.
Her boss's kid's birthday.
Right.
So
I did like that then as she's driving to the party, she does a very similar, just horrifying scream as she's driving.
Yeah.
Just like Longlegs had done earlier.
Well, and it's his car.
Oh.
Right, because she couldn't take her car.
She couldn't take her car.
Yeah. She had to like...
Because we see her find the car that had been covered up, when, and so she takes Longlegs' car and she gets to her boss's house and they open the door and they're acting weird AF.
Yeah, it is super weird vibes all up in here. Like the boss is being like impatient and annoyed and the mom is like being stiff and very friendly and excited and
like a good host.
Very weird.
And Ruby has gotten a doll. We see the doll.
So she is, and she's like enraptured with the doll.
Yeah, she's like,
petting
like
its
caressing
hair
it. Yeah,
just staring at it, caressing it like she won't leave it alone.
Right.
Yep. And Lee's mom is there in her little nun outfit. So it's just all of them awkwardly sitting in the living room. And there is like a good quote of the dad saying he's going to go cut the cake.
Yeah.
I think. And then he asks the wife to join him in the kitchen. And he says like, oh, I'll be right back. And he's like, well, I'll be back. You'll be in the kitchen. Because we know that he's going to go
kill her.
Kill her in the kitchen. Which like maybe would have been a good time for Lee to do something. Like,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, she almost kind of seems in this like dreamlike state a little bit. Like maybe she's in shock.
yeah.
And
Or
she's
maybe
just not like
the orb. Maybe the orb
right.
shattering
She's just
in
not.
her.
Which I have
Oh.
about 419 questions on that later, but
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah. So they go into the kitchen and we hear the dad stab the mom.
Mhm.
And that's when her boss comes back out, clearly ready to just kill his daughter, his name. And so finally Lee, I think she like has her gun. She like tries to intervene and her mom is like, no, like we have to let it happen. And, you know, like she also tries to like stand up. And so finally Lee, to stop it, has to kill her mom. And I feel like she had like, her mom had like transformed right into the Satan, I guess the devil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I feel like her voice kind of like changed. I think at that point she even says like, oh, like don't call me mom, or like don't call me that.
Yes.
When she's like saying like mom, like stop, and it's like don't call me that.
Right.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but
Yeah. So she kills her mom.
Mm-hmm.
She also shoots her boss. Right?
Yeah. As her boss
him.
like lunging, charging, trying to kill the daughter.
Yeah.
So when she shoots him.
So that leaves her and the daughter
And the doll.
Yeah.
So she shoots the doll, right?
Yeah, she shoots, or she tries to.
Does she shoot the doll?
I wrote she
know.
tries to shoot the doll.
I don't even know.
Here's exactly what.
That's what it was. No, she tried to shoot the doll, but her gun like wouldn't.
Oh, that's right.
Wouldn't work. Her
Mhm.
gun like
Yes.
kept, and she tried I think multiple times, and it kept not working.
Right.
So she couldn't shoot the doll.
And then we see the credits that are going the wrong way.
Well, no.
Yes.
Then the final scene is we get Longlegs.
Oh, we did.
Back in
right,
the interrogation room.
Mhm.
So we like cut back to Longlegs, which is just a flashback, I guess, to Longlegs in the interrogation room. And he just says like, "Hail Satan."
Oh, he does say "Hail Satan."
And then we get the credits, which are playing in reverse from what you would like expect.
Right. Right. They're going down instead of up.
Yeah, instead of like, scrolling bottom to top.
Scrolling from bottom to top. Yeah, it's top to bottom.
Top bottom. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Hail Satan, everyone.
Full of grace.
There's no post-credit scene.
Nope.
We stayed just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions, but maybe before we make our listeners listen to that, we should tell them what we're sipping on. So,
oh my gosh,
listeners, you can go get yourself a drink. You can pause, go get a drink, and then come back and listen to our ramblings on this very fine episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Laura found the
Yes. So how I found this was I just Googled because when I hear Longlegs, I think of Daddy Longlegs.
Mm-hmm.
So I just Googled Daddy Longlegs cocktail, and the first thing that popped up was a white wine sangria.
And that is good enough for us.
Beautiful.
Because it is summer and a sangria sounds so good.
And it's
and
been
a
over
daddy
100
sangria.
Yeah. It's been over 100 degrees here the last few days, so white wine sangria sounds delish. So I think the recipe that I had white wine. What did it have?
I think I had like peach schnapps or peach vodka.
Peach vodka, white wine, peach vodka, pineapple juice, orange juice.
Yeah, and just like whatever fruit. I think I got like peach, lime, and strawberries for mine, but like whatever you got.
Whatever tickles your fancy.
Yeah.
Whatever brings out the daddy in your cocktail, you know?
Exactly. So Daddy Longlegs sangria is what we are drinking tonight, pairing with this episode.
Okay, so my biggest question is what the fuck is the metal sphere and what does it do?
Right? No, like I feel like we legitimately like this is going to be a section of we're just going to ask each other questions about this movie. We rarely need to add this section. We're adding that one here.
I'm perplexed. I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
So it's like, I mean, we were supposed to get, I think at one point they explained, right, that Lee, the reason why she doesn't, remember the fact that Longlegs lived downstairs, is that like the dolls can impact what she sees, right? So whatever this orb is, it's like voodoo doll, where it changes her memory and can make her see things or do things maybe.
But is it what influences the dad to kill the family?
That's what I'm wondering.
I thought so.
And like what did it do when Lee's exploded? Like, other than her fainting, what
I think
what change did it make?
Admit that it would stop controlling her.
Yeah. So
was it controlling her?
I think it's set now. Well, I don't know if it's controlling, but it was like affecting the way her memory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, I can get that. The like, okay, the ball, voodoo doll kind of thing. It's prepared. The dolls even have like a likeness, I think, to the little girls.
Yeah, they do.
Like some of them kind of look like the girls.
Like, why put it in a doll? What?
Yeah, because creepy dolls are creepy.
But like, my question is, they go through all this work to take a doll to a family.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just all quickly die. So what happens to the doll? Does the mom take the doll? Do they have to explode that doll's head of the now dead child? Like,
I'm guessing they have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing they have to take the doll, because otherwise that would have also been a pattern that they'd be like, there's no sign of forced entry in all these families, but there's always this doll.
But why go to all this work to do it just for like an instant?
Well, to follow Satan's desire of killing
the devil works in mysterious ways.
Why not just throw the ball through the window?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, break their window, throw it in there. The dad will kill everyone. Bam, problem solved.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I understand how the dolls impact the girls, because all of the families have, it's mom, dad, and at least one daughter.
Yeah.
So I understand the dolls impacting the perception and stuff of like the little girls. But how does that make it so the dad has to kill everyone?
I don't know.
Because it's like the orb clearly is not contagious, right? Like, we see it, like, it's other people interact with it when they discover it. So we know the connection is with the girls. So like, this whole movie set it up to be like, hey, here's this like horrible serial killer that is making these dads do these like horrible things, and it keeps happening, and we don't understand how it's happening. And I feel like by the end of the movie, they still didn't really explain it.
No.
And was the first house that they went to where they found that guy, did that have anything to do with this?
No, I think that was just like,
a random assignment.
Let's show you that she is like psychic and an FBI agent.
Okay.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I think that was supposed to be like, I feel like one thing I saw was like, because the whole movie was just like, here's Satan doing messy things. So like, Satan wanted her to catch that first killer, which is why he doesn't fight back when she like arrests him, which gets her on the case.
Okay.
So there's that.
And like, was Longlegs the devil or just a devil worker?
I think he just worked for the devil, because Longlegs dies.
Well, no, but that's what I was wondering, is like, what does that mean?
I think he was just
a worker bee.
I think he was just a satanic worshiper.
Yeah. Hail Satan.
Satan.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he just worshipped him. But now they don't have a doll maker.
I don't think really we can answer a lot of these questions, because they don't have answers, because it doesn't
Nicolas
make
Cage, if you're listening, like, help us out, please. We're
okay.
Unsure.
Also, they never explain why his name is Longlegs.
Yes.
And I looked it up, and the writer-director guy, he was like, we just kind of liked how it sounded. We just kind of thought that was like a good name.
What?
He was like, it kind of gave like 70s.
Okay. Sure.
What?
Okay.
I don't like it.
No. You have to give me more than that.
Yeah, a lot more than that.
The whole Honestly, about this movie is like deciphering things. You have to give me more.
It sounds right. It sounds right that like we just kind of liked that because I feel like that's for all of the random hodgepodge of shit that they threw into this movie. They're just like, we just kind of thought that was a cool idea. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. We just threw it in.
Yeah. No,
like,
it's poetic, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I mean, he fully acknowledged in one of the interviews that in the trailers they were going for Silence of the Lambs. Like he was like, we wanted something that like felt familiar to people.
I mean, that was my immediate vibe.
Yeah. So they would come and watch it. And it's like, okay, so you just like tried to reference a significantly better movie.
Yeah, it just did it worse.
Yeah. Because it was like, oh, we'll draw people in by being like, oh, it's going to be similar to this. And then, completely change it and do something really different.
And
it's like, it was different. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It was different from Silence of the Lambs.
Very, very.
I just feel like they pulled from so many movies, like Silence of the Lambs, Zodiac. Mm-hmm. I feel like even, I know it's related, but like Hannibal the show, I feel like it reminded Lee's character reminded me a lot of Will.
Yes.
Like
are
Seven
we to the
a
point,
little bit.
Are we to the point where we're running out of movies? Like, is it finally happening?
Like not to be that person, but like it's so derivative.
It is derivative.
It is.
Oh my God.
Very derivative and pedantic.
You're pedantically derivative. You're derivatively pedantic.
We finally watched enough movies that we have to start talking like that.
Amazing. All right. Well, I was trying to think of something cute to say. It didn't come to me. Just remember, folks, she's not a real doctor, but they are not real people or Satan worshipers.
Or FBI agents.
Yeah. Or, good writing.
Nor do they have real ESP or ESPN. All right. So we're going to talk about a couple of just topics that we saw in the movie. Mm-hmm. The first, we've talked a little bit about some like clairvoyance. I think when we talked about, the Amityville one, not the Amityville movie, but
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we talked about that a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about just ESP in general and precognition, which they definitely were saying that Lee had, and who believes in that type of thing, and also some actual tests that can be given to determine if someone should have it.
Ooh,
wonderful.
So people who tend to believe that ESP is real tend to be people who follow their intuitions. So people who kind of have this gut feeling, if they would be the type of people to follow that, they might have more of a tendency to believe in ESP. It is also, the belief in ESP is positively correlated to the fear of death. So if you're more afraid of death, you might be more likely to believe in these psychic abilities. Also, if you believe that chance controls your life, or a fancy way of saying this is fatalism. So if you believe that is kind of in control of your life rather than you have control of your life, you might believe it. What's interesting is that people who rate high on tests of being quote unquote rational, or people of varying levels of intelligence, that makes no difference on if you believe in ESP or not.
Interesting.
Like sometimes I think the kind of tendency is to think, depending on whether you believe it or not, is to think, oh, well, only gullible people or people who, aren't rational.
Yeah, or dumber people.
Yeah, that they might be the ones to believe in this because there's no scientific evidence or whatever. No, that makes no difference on the rates of if you believe in it or not.
Interesting.
Have either of you ever had a moment where you felt like you had a little ESP or precognition? Okay, so I had one. So I walked home from school when we lived in New York. We lived about, I think we were like 0.9 miles away. So because if we had been a mile or over, we would have been able to bus. But because we were like 0.9 miles away,
you like didn't
walk. And so at this point in time, for whatever reason, I was expected to walk home alone. But for some reason, I had this like horrible feeling I knew something was wrong. And so like I ran home. And so when I ran home, my mom had been collapsed on the floor. She was she had an asthma attack, and she didn't have her inhaler. Do you remember that, Brianna?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And so like I got her inhaler and she used it and she was okay. But like I had, for some reason that day, I was like, something's wrong at home. I have to get home right now.
It's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
That is
Mhm.
weird.
I have ESP, guys.
You absolutely do.
Yeah, I nannied for a long time, and I was with this one little guy one time, and he was 4, I think, at the time, and we were swimming, and he got out of the pool, and his left foot was a little swollen, and he had this like tiny little rash, and I was like, oh, that's really weird, and so like, I called his mom, and she was like, yeah, just keep an eye on it, but I was like, I think there's something wrong, like something is wrong. And she was like, okay, yeah, like take him in. And he was in kidney failure, and he was very close to collapsing. And he's fine now. It was treatable, and they were able to manage it and all of that. But yeah, it would have been really bad if we hadn't have gone.
Just intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just goes to show, follow your intuition. I can't think of any.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it has, like, I feel like maybe like little things, nothing as big as what you guys experienced. I feel like I've maybe had little moments that I can't think of right now.
Not to bust balls, but one of the arguments against ESP being real is that memory can be unreliable. So these memories that we're having, sometimes you have a cognitive bias that is going to let you fill in parts of your memory with things that kind of make sense and like confirm the fact that, yeah, I knew it was coming. And also just be easily misinterpreted because, yeah, I'm remembering that time where I freaked out and I ran home and sure enough, it was needed. But think about all those times I have freaked out. I'm somebody that has anxiety. I have freaked out and I was like, I know something's wrong. Like I can't sleep, like something's wrong. And all those times where absolutely freaking nothing was wrong.
Yep.
But I remember the time where like I knew it and it turned out to be true, but that could just be statistically
right.
Yeah. Irrelevant. Sometimes things are bad when you have a bad feeling. Most times they're not.
Laura always panics and runs home. So, inevitably.
One of those times.
Exactly. I've done it thousands of times. Okay, so we saw them giving her some tests at the agency. So I want to talk about a few tests that have been given to try to prove or disprove ESP one way or the other. One is called the $1 million Paranormal Challenge. So this is a challenge that ran from 1964 to 2015.
Okay.
So a really long time. And it pretty much was saying if someone who has ESP can go through our tests and it can be proven that you have this psychic ability, we will give you $1 million. So if you feel that you have ESP, come do these tests. And if we can prove beyond a statistical, like probability that yes, you have psychic abilities, we will give you $1 million.
Okay.
So from 1964 to 2015, there's been over 1,000 like legitimate applicants to this. And then they stopped the challenge in 2015 because no one succeeded.
Well, bring it back. Maybe someone's still out
Yeah,
there.
who knows?
No one could beyond have scientific evidence.
What are the tests though? Like, because part of me is like, I'm going to take Lee's boss's like energy of, 50% psychic is still pretty good. Like, did anyone like almost passed the tests? Because I would call that good.
Right.
Well, I like that you bring this up because some of the tests that I found, I'm going to talk about two of like the main big ones. One is called the Gansfeld experiments. And so this is kind of, this is where there's two people and maybe one is supposed to be kind of psychic or have ESP. And so there's a sender. This is a person that doesn't have ESP. And then there's a receiver. And so the sender, they might see a bunch of images, and then they pick an image and they try to like send that image by thinking of it or by like watching videos of it. They try to send that image to the receiver.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then the receiver might be shown like 4 videos or 4 pictures, one of which the sender had been trying to send them, and the others which are, fake.
Mm-hmm.
So statistically, they're probably going to pick correctly about 25% of the time.
Yeah.
Because 1 in 4.
Mm-hmm.
So in the experiments, some of that were run like in 1974 and 1981, they had gotten results where the senders were 35% accurate in picking, which going from 25, which is kind of just random, it's going to be 25 to 35. It doesn't sound like a lot, but because of the volume of people they had done the experiments on, it actually was statistically significant proof of ESP being real. However, there was flawed methods of study. So, it could be things like from like outright cheating to like, I think we talked about sensory leakage when we had talked about the Conjuring. So it might be things like, okay, maybe that when you are the receiver is shown those 4 pictures, maybe the experimenter just ever so slightly looks longer at
one,
even if they don't mean to.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really flawed methods in the methodology. So even though that's statistical significant findings, it can't be replicated. And it doesn't really mean anything because there's like lots of problems with the experiment.
Yeah. Where it's like, how many of these people were just good at reading people, right? I feel like, like magicians, right? Like, it's like, they're just good at reading people, like reading crowds and
Right. And then, so the next kind of known test for ESP is called would you pronounce it Zener? Zener? Zener?
Zener? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
right.
Sounds like such a stupid word.
It's a stupid word.
Zener.
Okay, so
you're a Zener.
You're a Zener.
Yeah, it feels inappropriate a little.
It does feel wrong.
So you both have seen the original Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as like you think of this scene, you'll know what I'm talking about, the Zener cards. It's the exact cards that Dr. Venkman is using to try to like determine people are psychic. It's like cards that have 5 symbols on them.
Oh,
And so the Zener experiments were basically where, they would have the 5 cards, and participants were supposed to guess which card was being pulled next.
Oh, okay.
And then if they could guess it beyond, again, statistical probability, then that would be evidence that they were psychic. But again, there's lots of statistical reasons why, even though the Zener cards had proof sometimes that there was psychics, like bad shuffling, again, that kind of sensory leakage that happens. There's all sorts of reasons to why these like tests are kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
So even though she was given these tests and she was like, half psychic is still better than no psychic at all. Well, really, maybe that's just like statistically, like half the time people get it right.
Right.
That's true. They didn't tell us what the normal success rate is, did they?
They did not.
Well, I think they did. I think they said that's more than anyone gets, or
okay, yeah,
like way more than anyone else could get. But also statistically, if someone is guessing like 5 cards, sure, it's not common, but like a bell curve goes, like where most of the time people are going to get wrong. Let's just make up a number, like 50% of the time. But on extreme ends, there's also people who are going to get it wrong 100% of the time just by chance alone, and people that are going to get it right 100% of the time just by chance alone. It's rare, but it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
So anyway, that's just a little bit about ESP testing.
Bring back the challenge.
Yes.
I think we need to keep doing this.
Maybe we should do some Gansfeld experiments when we're together next time.
Yes.
Okay. And then there was just so much about satanic worship. And there was
Right.
not enough information about Longlegs and his origin story.
Yeah.
That we're going to talk about what might make someone turn to satanic worship and kind of come up with a theory for Longlegs' background.
Ooh, okay.
So, why might people turn to satanic worship? Typically, that's going to be if people have if they're feeling alienated, anxious, powerless, maybe they have poor social skills, feelings of anger, low self esteem, self blame, and depression. People with a lot of those factors might be attracted to Satanism as a means of obtaining this magical power and control over their destiny. Just because of all these other things that have kind of like had them feel like they have lost control.
Yeah.
Thanks. Also, there's a higher rate of people with masochistic tendencies, weak temperament, and this inclination to self-deprivation. So like people that kind of need to feel weak and impotent by like kind of giving up their freedom and personal responsibility. So people that like kind of have this like kind of gets back to that low self-esteem, but they feel weak and they feel like they're not good enough and they feel that Satan can kind of take control of them to help with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it also meets specific psychological needs that are not being met by other forms of religion. So maybe, Longlegs had tried to attend other churches or become religious in other ways, and it just wasn't scratching that itch that he had because of his, masochistic tendencies. So then he turns to Satanism. Some other predispositions, if there's a history of abuse in the family, or rigid rules. And the reason why is that this can lead to feelings of guilt. So if you've, had this abuse that has happened to you, and then your parents have been very, very rigid in their rules, not only do you have this guilt, but then you also see the world in black and white. And if then, okay, well, I don't feel like I'm a good person, therefore I'm evil. There's no in between. So when all those things kind of start happening, you might start labeling yourself as an aggressor and identify with Satan. And a lot of times then that's going to legitimize the experience you've had when you're younger, and also help you kind of separate from your abusive family and past. So one specific theory was saying that defense mechanisms created by, a person that goes towards Satanism, that have stemmed from the traumatic experience, it produces kind of these behavioral characteristics that almost kind of like serve as alter egos. So you kind of almost detach from the behavior, or not the behavior, from the personality you had when you were younger. And so you now become this like satanic type personality. It's like, like a whole alter ego, but it's a way to kind of protect yourself from that like really traumatic abusive past you've had. Kind of like DID, like that we've talked about. So sometimes, like when you have this alter ego that you've, formed to kind of separate yourself from your past, you can express yourself in ways that seem very, very satanic. Like you speak in tongues, you do things that others would say is like evil and scary. And so then if you're perceived as satanic, then maybe you just roll with it. So I think Longlegs was born to a family where I think it was just mom. I think dad had left the picture and mom was very, very rigid and abusive. And when he was around the age of 14, he discovered this community of devil worshippers. So he decided to kill mom end this abuse and trauma. And he also was already predisposed. Like he has low self-esteem. He, feels like weak because his mom has emasculated him his whole life up until he's 14. And 14 is a very like important age for a teenage guy. So I think he killed her when he was 14 and then turned to devil worshiping and then feels that he needs to continue killing families that he perceives have what he didn't have as a kid. Like it's a mom, a dad, and a girl, and they seem like very loving families. And so he feels that he needs to kill them to please the devil. And he chooses them because they have what he didn't have.
Plus, he gets to enjoy his hobby of doll making.
Right.
Added bonus.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was another thing I was thinking too, is I think part of the abuse and judgment that came from the mom who has this very black and white thinking is I think he was always into dolls and doll making, but she thought that's a girl's thing. You're a boy. So this is wrong. I punish you. I abuse you because, dolls are for girls, not for boys.
Yeah.
And so that was part of it too.
Ooh, okay.
Interesting.
Now the orbs and stuff, I have no explanation for that, but
that will it's fine.
I don't think anyone does, Laura.
It would be interesting to get an origin story of Longlegs. Again, it's like there were a lot of cool concepts that I wish they would have focused on less and then given us more. Right. But yeah, getting like an origin of Longlegs, it could be like an extra dark Pinocchio,
Yes.
Yeah.
I would see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
Totally.
I mean, not to talk about a different movie. If you haven't seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio,
I still haven't.
Oh,
you
have to watch it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you think? Do you think that background of Longlegs is possible?
Totally.
That seems possible.
It could explain some of what we see in him, yeah?
Totes my
I
goats.
think they could make a movie of it.
Oh, definitely.
You should call them.
Again, just focus on one thing. Maybe you explain the orbs here as well.
Agreed.
And so I'm sure eventually we'll do another movie that gets into like satanic worship. And when we do, we should talk about, because I looked a little bit of that up, but it doesn't quite fit this movie, of like the hysteria that was satanic worshipers and how that is a psychological phenomenon all on its own. But let's save that for when we do some other.
Have you watched Maxine yet?
No.
Oh, they go hard into it. And again, not to talk about another movie, Maxine is so good. Go watch it.
Okay.
We should add it to our list of ones to watch.
We should.
Yeah.
So.
And if we want to talk about Satanic Panic, I don't think that's
when we
too
can
much
do
away. But yeah, it's like the opening of the movie.
Totally. I'm down.
Love it. So that's my psych.
Love.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm guessing we don't have like a ton of.
Yeah, I tried to do a little bit of research and like listen to a couple like interviews and stuff. So I think I have a couple. One is the director, and I think he was the director and the writer, Oz Perkins. He has some pretty famous parents. His dad is Anthony Perkins, aka the person who played Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's how this movie got made.
Horror connection.
Okay.
I'm sorry if you're listening out there, Oz. I didn't mean it.
And then I think his mom was also like an actress and a model. Barry Berenson. Yeah, Barry Berenson was his mom. I hadn't heard of her. Isn't that such a cute name?
Such a cute name.
So yeah, he has some big name to live up to.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, and then in an interview, because I think we had talked about the orbs and what happens to Lee once the orb is broken.
Right.
According to him, he said, like, the orb breaks and, like, that's it. Like, reset. Like, she is going to get maybe her memories back. Like, whatever control, whatever satanic thing is happening, it's over.
I see.
The thing is broken.
They did not do a good job of showing that to us.
No, which is why he had to explain it after, which is why people have questions.
And also then how the orb has to do with the dads being the ones that are killing. Like that doesn't explain any of that.
Yeah.
Because like, why the fork would you need to alter the kids' memories if you're just about to kill them?
Right.
Right. It only makes sense for Lee if, you know, because it's like,
Yes,
this is going to be he's playing the long con with Lee. That's fine. No, if someone did understand this, like, please tell us.
Let
Because
us, please.
like if we're like missing something that was like super glaringly obvious,
we
during
want
the movie,
to know.
I do want to know. But I don't see if that was explained. Like, I don't
We are
see
3
how
intelligent
that would be.
ladies.
Some days.
Yeah.
For the most part.
After this, Nick Cage said that he will not portray a serial killer again. I think he likes doing this, but he won't do it again.
Okay.
But he did so well.
You know what? That's good. Just leave it in that legacy. Like, just be Longlegs, and that's it.
Okay. One other thing is the actress that played Lee, Maika Monroe, they didn't want her to see Nick Cage in his full transformative state. Because, I mean, he looks completely different.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about.
Like, if you didn't know it was him, you wouldn't know it was him.
You really wouldn't. They didn't want her to see him. So it was like their first scene together. That was the first time that she would see him in like the full like makeup and costume. And so the first time is, I think it's like the interrogation scene. That was the first one they shot together. And on her mic, you could hear her heart rate like shoot up, just like reacting to it. And I think in one of the trailers, because her mic was like I think it was one of those that like you put kind of like near your chest. So in the trailer, they used like her increased heart rate in like the background of one of the trailers, which was just like her honest reaction to Nick Cage.
Okay, so I know we were just talking about like ESP and stuff. I swear I have heard you tell that story while recording this podcast before. I know you haven't, but I just had the most intense sense of deja vu where I'm like, well, you told us
you
that.
already
like,
told us.
We have had this conversation.
Are you up there or down there? I mean,
oh my gosh.
I mean, other directors will do the same thing of like keeping actors apart.
Right.
But it was the heart rate thing.
Go
look for a doll.
Because you know what's funny? Like as someone that loves movies of all kinds, you know, sometimes you just are so into the movie that you don't think about what goes into it. But I always find it so funny when I consider them acting them non-sequentially. Like to me, I'm like, well, no, they just do the movie start to finish. Like, but it's not like that at all. Like, and I that always like is so interesting to me because I'm like, that would be so strange to like stay in your character when you're like jumping all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
I always think that with movies where like the character's hair changes when it's been like different years that they're kind of portraying. And I always think about, okay, well, when their hair is long, that was probably what they shot first.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they had to shoot, you know, as it's shorter, they had to shoot all those at the same time too.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like acting, I feel like sounds so easy, you know, and then you see how they actually do it. Like,
hard.
What is it? Game of Thrones, Daenerys. Her actual name, the actress's name.
Oh yeah.
Why am I forgetting her name?
Sorry.
No, I'm looking it up. I'm not.
I was like, it's Kit Harington. That's not it.
That's the guy.
I'm close. As soon as you say it, we're all going to be like, oh,
no, it's like tip of my tongue.
Emilia Clarke.
Yes,
like
Emilia
I follow
Clarke.
her on Instagram. I'm like, I know it. Like,
well, I was just gonna say, like, you know, I feel like I've seen a picture of her in front of like the green screen, you know, where it's like her riding a dragon and it's like a stick with like a green ball and then like full green screen around her. And it's like, oh, okay, no, what they're doing is hard.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I did write down his full name, or I found his full name for Longlegs. I think they only say it once. His name is Dale Ferdinand Cobble. So that's his legal name.
With a name like that, no wonder he turned to Satanism. Come on.
Right.
Okay, the movie had a pretty small budget. They had a budget of $10 million to shoot. They shot it in Vancouver, British Columbia. So they were in the Pacific Northwest, but not Oregon.
Okay.
And they had a marketing budget of $10 million.
Okay.
Because the marketing for this movie was absolutely insane and I fell for it.
Yeah.
And it worked
100%.
because they've already grossed over $81 million worldwide, which for a horror movie is incredible.
Wild.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should talk about their marketing a little bit. And one, I actually kind of wanted to try because some of the billboards that they put up for this movie, all they did was have a phone number. I don't know if you saw any of these billboards, but it was just a phone number to call. And I feel like maybe we should call.
We should call.
I don't think I ever saw them.
I think it said something different before they released it.
No, we have to. We have to call.
Put it on speaker.
I'm going to put it on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on speaker and I'm going to call this number. Hold on, I wrote it down.
Oh my gosh, I'm so scared.
Okay, the phone number is 458-666, of course, 4355. You hear that? You hear that?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, that hangs it up.
How did the breathing sound like Nicolas Cage? Like that was incredible.
That must have been
amazing.
Straight from the 20-minute recording of him saying happy birthday.
That's amazing.
I love that.
We had to do it. I was like, I have to call this number and see what they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they did that. They really focused on like less taking out ads, more that like, I don't know, like guerrilla marketing, right? Like, yeah, it's like, let's put up a phone number. Like, I think they put up some like codes for people to decipher for the movie. So like they made it really fun. I feel like I saw them on TikTok everywhere. Yeah. So the marketing.
Maybe we should start doing that to like get out a little more,
Yeah.
We should like write a satanic code that we can like intrigue followers to start following us.
We could also just give out like my personal phone number and just see if people would like to call.
Put it on a billboard. Just
call and chat. Chat with Dr. Laura.
Just see what happens.
Okay,
everyone.
Yeah. We'll keep you guys posted on if we do this.
Coming soon to Spooky Sips. Online therapy, not online, but therapy with Dr. Laura.
Yes. They also like did not show Nick Cage in any of the trailers or anything.
No, I was
keeping him. I noticed that. Mm-hmm. I think he was on like the poster and like his name because they knew it would draw people. I mean, he has so many fans. They knew it would draw people, but they didn't show him. And I think that's all my little fun facts.
I mean, when it's a newer movie, like
it's a newer one. The IMDb is brand new, the Wikipedia is brand new, and you have to watch full interviews with them to get the fun facts.
Mm-hmm. But it's one of those movies that I think in a little while it will become more divisive of people being like, no, I loved it. No, I didn't. Like this having a cult following, I could
I completely
see that happening. Mm-hmm. So I'll be interested to see like in 6 months or a year where read is at,
No, I could see the exact, because I feel like this is one of those movies where like you could probably catch more with a rewatch. Mm-hmm. But I personally don't want to rewatch it.
Right.
No.
No, good.
But maybe someone out there wants to do it.
Right. Good for you. All right. Well, that's a good segue. So here on Spooky Sips, we don't do stars. We do sips. Mm-hmm. So out of 5 sips, how many are you giving? I also want you to state if you recommend people to still go see it. What's your opinion on if people should go see it? Where are you at?
All right, I'll go. I'm trying not to judge it so harshly because for some reason I had my hopes up for this movie. A lot of times I keep my hopes low so that I can be pleasantly surprised. But for this one, I really had my hopes up.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed. I liked Nick Cage's acting. I liked some of the scary scenes, but I wasn't really scared. Sure, I had a half a bottle of champagne before I went and saw the movie, but like I got so sleepy.
Yeah.
They tried to do too much. It was confusing. I give it a 2.
Yeah.
I give it a 2, and I don't recommend seeing it. I don't think this is one you have to go see. You can see Nick Cage be weird and do some good acting in other movies. I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think
I
you can
think,
get a
yeah.
lot of the parts of this movie they tried to get, like the cool FBI part and the creepy doll and the Nick Cage.
Yeah,
and
just go watch better movies that do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch other movies that focus on that do a better job. Don't watch this one.
No, it felt like a little bit of a bait and switch. And again, the director acknowledged it. They acknowledged that they wanted people to think it was like Silence of the Lambs to get them to go watch it.
Right.
But I was so into the first part of this movie. And like, I feel like honestly, the first part of the movie, I wanted it to be a TV series. Like I wanted to watch her like crack the codes and like find this guy. I wanted that to last like hours. I was ready for like that type of like thriller movie. And then it just was not that like at all. Like if you watch the trailer and you're excited about the movie because of the trailer, then like don't go watch it, because
that's the
it is
best
completely different
of the movie.
Yeah.
The trailer. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah. And I think like part of it is like I like that type of movie so much,
right,
that I felt like extra disappointed when it was something completely different. So I was thinking a 2.25 because they made a movie. You know, it was a movie. It
did happen.
It was shot really. It had some really interesting shots.
Mm-hmm.
There were some I think I jumped once. Something made me jump. I'm forgetting what it was, but
I don't think I did.
Something made me. I think
I like fell asleep and like jolted away,
jolted back up. So there were parts of it that were it wasn't like a it's not a 1 for me.
Right.
I think 2.25, and I probably wouldn't recommend watching it. I don't really know who would like this movie. It just felt very like if you just want a spooky movie, like spooky ambiance, then like this movie's fine. Like if you're just like, I want to get in the spooky season mood,
right?
This movie's fine.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't say like, oh, you're gonna miss out. I think there's better movies.
I agree. I completely agree with both of you. I'm at a 2 because like it is a movie, and there were moments. I think for me,
ringing endorsement.
It was a movie.
It was a movie that I saw. So there you go. I think for me, like if you are a horror fan, I would say maybe see it, just so that you can like know what it's all about, like what the fuss was all about and kind of where it is. And there are some people that just love that like slow, quiet horror. This had moments of that. But like for anybody else, no, do not. It's literally not worth your time. Yeah. Because you could just Google a picture of Nicolas Cage as Longlegs to see. And that's good enough.
And call that phone number, and then you can hear him.
Yes, and then done. You've gotten everything.
Yeah,
you could. All right, so we obviously made our feelings clear this episode.
I was honestly so curious how you guys were going to feel about it, because at the very end, I mean, I knew I was disappointed, but I still didn't know how I felt about it.
Yeah,
and then I looked stuff up, and like it has mixed reviews.
Yeah.
And Laura, so I was so curious where you guys were.
We were trying so hard not to say anything to each other after, because like we save it for the pod, but like you could just tell.
We were both just like,
faces.
I mean, like, so okay, so we always say we're going to save it for the pod. That we say that every time. And then after we watch the movie, we usually will just still send each other a very small, like a 2-second reaction of like, oh, I just watched it, like something.
Yes.
Where we like mildly give off how we're feeling about it.
Yeah.
There were nothing I think all of us went and watched this movie and then we just said nothing.
We just
Right.
needed to not think about it for a while.
And it was
Nothing
like,
to say.
okay, yeah, no, talk to you on Wednesday.
We
There
watched
was
that
nothing-
movie.
There was nothing
Twitter.
worth saying.
We successfully watched a movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting a little sci-fi, old school, kind of weird for our
I think this
next
will be
one.
good, though. Mhm.
We are going to watch Hellraiser. And I don't have any of us seen it?
I have never seen it, which
I've
I
never
cannot
seen
believe.
Oh,
Okay. So
I-
this
First
it's
time for all of
rare
us?
if it's not a new movie that one of us hasn't seen it. So this will be
Yeah.
interesting.
I honestly, I don't really know much about it other than what like the main dude looks like. The
Same.
like, classic. There's
Same.
pins coming out of his head.
Yep.
Yep.
Same. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know nothing about it. I'm so excited.
Okay. Well,
Oh.
I'm excited.
this will be fun.
So if you haven't watched it, get watching, get sipping, and we'll see you next time on Spooky Sips.
Okay, bye.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Spooky Sips. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. To stay up to date on all the spooky things we're up to, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at spookysips_podcast. And if you want to help support the podcast, consider buying us a coffee, or really a cocktail. We are completely independent, so every little bit goes a long way to keeping our podcast running and improving. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.